welcome to another episode of Ask the Zamboni Experts. I'm Doug Peters, and along with me today, going to host this is our account manager from IMI, Chris Fish, and our guest today is Justin Brunelle from the City of Medicine Hat. Welcome, gentlemen. Chris, I'm going to have you take it away and fire the questions off to Justin.
Alrighty, thanks, Doug. Hey, Justin, how's it going?
Hey, real good. You, Chris?
I'm doing well. So first off, I want to say thank you for joining us in this. Again, you've been a really big voice for me here in Alberta, especially with the 450s and the push to move forward to the lithium ion. I know Medicine Hat has for years been on a different fuel source, and to move this direction was actually fantastic. What was the deciding factor, I guess, for you to decide to move away from the fossil fuel?
Well, Chris, I guess I'll step back a little bit. During our budgeting cycle, moving into 2019, we identified that two of our current units had reached end of life. And we had originally really planned to replace like with like and likely go with another 526. During the exploration process, we got connected with the MCCAC and discovered there was some grant money that would be available for alternative fuels. So a little bit last minute, we put the brakes on our procurement process and had a conversation with our recreation department to find out, is this something they'd be interested in? To my surprise, they were very, very receptive to the idea of at least starting to explore it. The further down the rabbit hole we got in looking at, electric alternatives, we found that there was really a potential for a good fit, given that the technology had come a long way since it had last been looked at, and the grant funding that was going to be available through the MCCAC made it become financially feasible for us to go down that road.
No, awesome. I know when you and I had first met 2 years ago, I guess it's going on 2 years now, there was a bit of concern because, again, moving from, I guess, with the talk of lead acid is where we initially started that conversation. And then when we started talking about the lithium ion, can you kind of speak towards what the catalyst was on the decision between the two?
Sure. So lead acid's obviously been around for quite some time, and as everybody's well aware, there's a fair amount of, I guess we'll call it maintenance that's required on them to make sure the batteries are topped up, they're operating properly. The failure rates on them can be relatively high at times. And not only does that lead to additional cost and downtime for a machine, but also adds a fairly significant health and safety risk to our operators or our technical staff who have to perform that work. So when we really started getting to the meat and potatoes of what could it look like for us to go electric, we made a decision fairly early on that if we were going to go electric, we were going to go with the lithium ion battery, and that would allow us to get we'll call it the life cycle or the range out of it that we're going to need, while eliminating the health and safety risks that come with it, and also eliminating the additional work that would come with it that translates into either more downtime or more time for my technical staff to be out working on this equipment. So it became a fairly easy win when we started comparing the lithium ion versus the lead acid, and the fairly small price difference between the two technologies now.
Based on, because there was a few things that you were talking about with regards to your media piece. Again, you did a fantastic article for the MCCAC, and then you're putting together some new information based on the comparisons of fossil fuel to electric. What are some of the things that you're kind of hoping to gain from the differences between the two?
Sure. So I think one of the key pieces that we need to look at, with the economy being what it is and every dollar and cent counting, is making environmentally sound decisions is extremely important, but we need to do them in a fiscally responsible way. And one of the things that we believe we will be able to do with the 450 electric is that we should actually be able to save money over the life cycle of these units. So our initial belief and understanding is that we should see about an 80% fuel cost savings starting immediately. And then over the lifetime of that unit, we should see approximately a 30% decrease in maintenance. So that's going to translate into some fairly significant dollars and cents over the lifetime of these units, which theoretically should more than cover the cost of the price increase on the machine. And again, with the MCCAC grants that were available, that really made the business case very strong.
The process for you for the MCCAC, how did you find that process? I know there's a lot of individuals out there. Some of are saying that, you know, it's been pretty smooth, and there's been a few that I don't know if it's just some of the key points they're looking for, but what was the process like for you?
Very smooth. The team over at the MCCAC were really great to deal with. They walked us through all the steps. Of course, being a municipality, any contracts need to run right up to the top to be signed off. They worked with us to make sure we were able to work within timeframes to get that done. We had an interesting hiccup that occurred during our procurement process that everybody's kind of exposed to now, and COVID hit us, which put a delay on the production and shipment of the batteries for our units. When we went back to the MCCAC and explained what had happened, we had some great communication with them. They were more than happy to work with us to extend some of our deadlines and really work with us to make sure this project was going to be a success.
Now that you have the machines, we kind of talked a little bit about it, but what's the feedback been like so far?
I guess overall, very good. When I talk to my mechanics and my technical staff, they're very excited. They're really liking the way the electrical technology was integrated into a system that is still very familiar to them. And they're excited to get their hands into working in that space a little bit more. The frontline operations staff have been extremely receptive to it. At first, of course, with any significant change, there's a little bit of hesitation, but now that they've had them out, they've had some training on them, put them through their paces. What they're saying is they're surprised at how similar it operates to their traditional fuel machines, and they don't believe operationally it's going to have any negative impact. Also, with some of the add-on features like the level ice, they're finding that they're going to not only increase their ability to do a consistent flood and maintain consistent ice, but it should actually end up giving them time back in their day to focus on other items.
Oh, that's awesome. I know that was one of the worries was when we did deliver the machines. Again, when you go from a 500 series to a 400 series, there was a bit of concern there because of the sheer size of the machine. And then the operation being pretty much identical with a couple of features being less, you know, there was some concern there, but no, it was actually really well received to have those units dropped off.
Justin, it's great to see that you guys are adapting to the electric machine. Down here in the States, it's been a lot longer that we've had the electrics. The 552 came out in 1990, and just within the last year, it's been a game changer with going with LI, and most all of our customers now are going that. And you brought up the topic about maintenance. That's one of the things we've learned in 30 years is that the batteries don't generally get the care that they need to, and that contributes to batteries failing early, which costs the customer money. But I think you guys have made a great choice with the 450. I'm excited about that machine as well, because that kind of led into us getting the LI battery available down here in the States in the 552, and we've actually sold probably a half a dozen 450s down here. There's the sister mall to the Gramasians Mall in Edmonton, the West Edmonton Mall, that's out in Jersey, and they're if they can get open with the governor allowing them to open, they'll have a 450, a new 450 there pretty soon. But I think you guys are going down the road, the right road. Down here in the States, it's been a little bit more advanced in certain marketplaces, Minnesota and New England with electrics. And I think your staff is going to find that it's a great choice that you guys made.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think we've really turned the corner. It was an opportunity for us to dip into the EV world a little deeper than we had. Medicine Hat being an oil and gas town, obviously there was some concern in that, what are we getting into here? Is this the right technology? Is this the right time? So far, everything we've heard back has been extremely positive. Our electricity rates are fairly low. We are one of the few municipalities in Canada that own our own electric generation facility. So we really end up being completely vertically integrated, right from the gas wells that supply our power generation plant to putting the power into the Zamboni. And we're going to get some great exposure on these units too. So placement of them became very important to us. So we're home of the Medicine Hat Tigers, and our Canelta Center is where they play. So we wanted to make sure we got one of these units into that facility to really showcase new technology and us taking a step forward, both from a fiscal responsibility perspective and an environmental responsibility perspective. But also junior hockey and minor hockey is huge in Medicine Hat. And so we also have one of these units going into one of our very busy arenas that sees junior hockey constantly through the winter. So it's going to get some great exposure right through the community. And I think overall, it's going to be a very positive addition to our fleet.
Well, you talked about cost of operation, and that's something that if you guys ever do an analysis, it would be awesome for us to get the stats that you come up with. What we've found down here in the States in the 30 years of the 552 is that the electric machine is really inexpensive for the charging process. That we had a study years and years ago that was 8 to 10 kilowatts to take it from a full state of discharge to a full state of charge. And back in that day, you might have been looking at a nickel per kWh. kWh is much higher now down here, depending on the marketplace. But if you do any of that research, we'd certainly love to get the feedback on that, because that is something that you can go to a customer and let them know what they're going to be looking at, so that they put that fear behind them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of the areas we're going to focus on quite closely and try to get as much, we'll call it empirical data, as we can. We do have the luxury, I guess, that within our fleet, we still have other 526s that we are running, that we can really do a good A/B comparison to say, okay, per flood, here's where we're at, and here's the price of gasoline, here's the price of propane, here's the price of electricity in our market, and how does this make business sense overall? I know with anybody getting into the EV market, whether it be equipment or vehicles, there's a bit of a sticker shock at the front end with the technology still being relatively expensive. But what's been my experience is, if you start rolling out the business case over the total life cycle of that unit, all of a sudden it starts to make a lot of dollars and cents to go down that road.
Yeah, we've had customers that have told us, and again, early on in this, they figured that it was looking at a payback in the difference between a fuel-powered machine and an electric machine of about 5 to 7 years. And it really, I think, going down the road, even in certain marketplaces like Michigan, which in the States is a automobile type marketplace, a fuel-powered automobile, not necessarily electric, and in your province where they're more fuel oriented, down the road, it's going to be something where I envision, not in my working career, because I don't think I'll be around 20 more years working, but I think within that time frame, we're going to see people migrate strictly to electric machines, and they'll wonder why they ever used a fuel-powered machine in an indoor facility. And you guys are definitely getting the jump on that.
Absolutely, and I think the fuel costs difference is one line item that's considered. When we started having conversations with our operational group and our facilities group about what would this look like to go down this road, there was a couple, I'll call them maybe less thought of items that popped up, and one of that is gas monitoring. So right now in any of our facilities, we need to have monitoring systems that are, monitoring for CO2 and other emissions that are there as a direct result of the ice resurfacers that we've chosen to run historically. What our belief is that eventually we may be able to completely eliminate those, or at least reduce them significantly, reducing the upfront cost and the maintenance costs on those systems as well. So when we start talking about building design, there's some exponential savings operationally and capital that can be realized by simply changing fuel sources, which is then again reduces that payback.
Right, and that's something that in Minnesota, which is where I grew up, they have some of the tightest air quality standards in indoor ice rinks in our country. And a lot of the facilities have gone to electrics because with an electric ice resurfacer, they're not having to test the air quality like they would be required to with an electric ice resurfacer. And the big push I'm going with, in addition to not only the machines, but the edgers themselves, because the edger is a bigger polluter than ice resurfacer is. And if you guys haven't made that jump, I'm going to assume you probably already have, but that's the number one component to go. And if you've got the electric machines, go that route with the edgers as well.
Absolutely, and I think that's really the approach we're trying to take, is taking these logical steps and the compound value of them, both environmentally, from a health and safety perspective, and then of course financially, really adds up to it making good business sense, and really turns into a win for our whole community.
Chris, I'd like to throw it back to you because you're more aware of what options he's got, but I see that they've got Zamboni Connect and Level Ice as options that you're able to sell them on for their machine. Maybe you can go into depth with Justin about these features.
Absolutely, thanks, Doug. Yeah, you guys are correct. We did manage to discuss the Level Ice and the Connect option. Something that it is still relatively new for them because they've just actually got ice in, so it's just a matter of how are they liking it so far? With the Connect itself, Justin, have you got yourself connected on there to see the data?
No, Connect, we're still working with our IT department to, I'll call it bridge that gap. It's actually a learning that we had through this process that we won't make the mistake again, but we didn't get our IT department involved maybe early enough. So it's ended up causing a bit of a delay in us being able to utilize that feature. But we're in the process of working with them. We've taken a look at the features that are there and how they will work, and we're excited to start utilizing them.
One of the big components of that Connect system is something that you can see in the manuals and the videos is a training piece, and that's something that I talk to the operators about, especially with some of the transition right across the board right now, as you get a lot of new young operators, and training becomes a key component. So having all the information there is going to give you guys that ability to sit people down first and actually look at everything before they actually get to do the hands on the machine. With the Canalta Center in operation, have you had much feedback with regards to the Level Ice and how it's been working?
Yeah, I've had a couple conversations on the Level Ice system, and so far from both the we'll call it the management group and the frontline user groups, they say they're really liking it. Definitely a bit of a learning curve on it, but I've heard a couple people say that some of the hesitation around it was they felt it was turning him into a driver rather than a professional operator. And the feedback I've gotten so far was they actually are changing their thoughts around that it's not only going to keep them an operator, but it's really going to make them take a great operator and add to their tool belt of how they continue to improve their skills and build on the skills they already have. there's also thought that when training new operators, the level ice system is going to help with that transition from being a newbie to an expert.
And I'm glad you actually said that, because that is one of the key points. Again, when you have individuals that are operators who have been operating a long time, they see this component as a tool that they didn't see a benefit to, but when you actually look at it in depth, it actually assists on the work that they're doing. And it's good that you're actually able to hear those comments that you got drivers who are saying, no, this is actually going to make me a better operator.
Absolutely.
I guess the component from the Connect perspective is it'll be interesting to see how the data will be collected, because again, I know you're going to be doing the comparison between having been on the fossil fuel now over to the electric, but are you guys also looking at moving to solar power with any of the facilities, and how will affect your overall costs?
I don't know that there's a current, I'll call it, plan in place to do that. But just the nature of the way the energy markets are going and energy, I'll call it, production is happening, it's inevitable that is going to happen in a larger scale. And I think that'll all play into the future of how this technology is used by us.
Yeah, also, one of the things that you and Doug were talking about, again, with Alberta being such a huge fossil fueled province, especially in Canada, it is, it's been a bit of an effort and a push to get facilities even looking at electrics, let alone the lithium ion, because again, it is such new technology. I know there's the taste for this is actually increased over the fact that, you guys being one of the first major municipalities in Alberta to jump on board this without hesitation. Then I got West Edmonton Mall, who jumped on board to this, and just as Doug alluded to, the sister mall in the US, that they're moving towards this. The fact that you've been a really good voice for us, is there any other advice, I guess, at this point that, might help kind of tip somebody over the edge, especially from a fleet perspective? Because again, the fleet perspective is one that it's a bit challenging here in Alberta, for the fact that it's a technology that has to be learned. And I don't know if there's anything you wanted to speak towards that, or.
Yeah, I think from a fleet perspective, and I mean, full disclosure, I'm an old oil and gas guy. I came out of that industry. I've worked in, the oil sands. I've worked at drilling rig sites, and I'm a true, Alberta born kind of thing, born and raised. And so I definitely can understand the hesitation in moving towards EV technology. I think my advice to anybody who's looking at going down the road of purchasing a new ice resurfacer is take a couple steps back and really have a hard look at the dollars and cents side of it. I think that's where, when you start really getting into what we'll call it the financial value of this equipment is, and looking past strictly on the fuel side, but also taking into account the maintenance costs, the longevity of the equipment, the total life cycle of what that equipment will look like, and what the impact on your overall operations would be. I think EV technology as a whole is moving incredibly fast, is becoming more and more affordable, and is going to continue to become financially advantageous, and of course reducing our environmental impact. So I think for a lot of municipalities and a lot of organizations, this really can turn into a win-win on all sides.
Chris, if I can jump
Sure,
in and ask a question. One of the things I think you're going to find with the Justin, with the machines, and I think it's going to be a big value to you and other people considering an electric vehicle, is the reduced maintenance of the vehicle itself. You don't have an engine, which means you don't have oil changes, you don't have tune-ups, and even the engines nowadays that you can run spark plugs for a long time, there still is air filters you have to worry about. There's still the occasional change of the spark plugs. There's also the exhaust system that sometimes gets overlooked by a lot of people in the fact that you have a catalytic device that's going to need to be changed. And I think, and I don't know what you see up there, and it'd be interesting to get your take on it, but down here in the States, what is electric vehicles from 25, 30 years ago, I remember the Honda Insight being the first electric car that I really saw. Now you're seeing people buying Teslas and Leafs and all these other different electric options. Young people who are the future drivers of ice resurfacers are seeing their parents buy electric vehicles. Maybe not so much up there, but down here they are. And that's why I think that it's going to be an easier transition into an electric vehicle. What's your take on that, Justin?
I completely agree with you. I'm a Tesla owner myself. I'm just coming up on my 1-year anniversary of being an EV driver, and what I'm seeing in circles that I run in, and when I'm speaking with people in the community and people in the fleet world, is that because EV has evolved so quickly in the last 5 years and has really become less of a luxury, and more of the average person can get into those technologies, there's a lot more acceptance. And I think we are moving to a state where our operators of the future, our hockey players, our hockey parents, they're going to be looking for these things to really say, you know what, we're having a positive or a neutral impact on the environment, but we're doing it in a fiscally responsible way. And I think that's the balance we're really getting to now, is that we're not having to pay a $100,000 premium to get electric technology. We're getting it very close to on par with what a traditional fuel vehicle would be. So when those things all start to come together, combined with simply the convenience of the electric technology. So now our operators aren't having to haul fuel around. They're not having to go fill up jerry cans. They're not having to get fuel trucks coming to the site to fill their equipment. These are all things that add to the efficiency and the appeal of it. And as we start to get people's hands on this technology a little bit more, get them to understand it, and I think most importantly, put them in the right places at the right times, we'll see continued adoption, and I would even suggest continued and increased demand for these technologies to go into place.
Yeah, and one of the things I think that you will see also that will push towards electric vehicles is that they're safer. It's not, you don't have to worry about a propane tank or a couple propane tanks on the back of a machine and then a storage container. You don't have to worry about gasoline cans if people operate with gasoline. And you know, even with CNG, it's got its own hazards that are associated with internal combustion fuel. So it's something that younger people coming into the industry, I think, are just going to adapt to it. And you know, you're an example of driving a Tesla, and that's awesome in oil and gas country. And I just was reading something online that our governor has decided to ban sale of all new gasoline-powered cars starting in 2035. So I think the price of electric vehicles is going to go up now down here in California.
You know, and there's some really interesting things happening within the industry as a whole. I know Tesla had their battery day yesterday, and some fairly significant announcements there around you know, longevity, charging, and cost per kilowatt hour, essentially. So there's some big moves happening, and I think I'm excited from a fleet perspective to be a bit on the leading edge of it, like you say, especially in oil and gas country, but not jumping in blind and not doing it at the expense of fiscal responsibility either.
That's correct. And like I say, with Zamboni, and I could preach about this all day long about our time with electric vehicles. We go back to the very first electric machine was built for the 1960 Olympic Games in Squaw Valley, California. And we've been building electric machines ever since then, with the first production ones being the 550, and one of those was used up at the West Edmonton Mall successfully for years. And they changed to a 552, I believe, for a bit. They had that, and then when it needed to be replaced, they went with the 450 because the 450 offered them a lithium-ion battery and a properly sized machine for the size ice surface they had. And the 450, I'm excited about, to get people excited about electric machines in the Canadian marketplace. And Chris, maybe you can elaborate a little bit more to see what you guys are seeing on your end with quotations and where you see it going. What's your take?
Well, right now, like the message right now in Alberta is that net zero. A lot of the municipalities throughout Alberta want to be the leader of some sort when it comes to trying to find more economical ways of managing their communities. And, when we put that machine into West Edmonton Mall, that one there, again, from their perspective, there's no off-gassing. So any of the users that are walking by, we're getting some of that off-gas smell from the machine, and we're kind of curious. Now they're not going to see that, and it's one that's gained a lot of attention throughout Alberta. So speaking from the 450 perspective, the lithium ion is, even if it is the lead acid, it's electric. And I'm starting to see that change now with regards to a lot of the municipalities where anything popping up, they're talking about the change. What are the differences? How is it going to save them? And when you start getting into the meat of it, just as Justin's talking about here, is that cost of ownership. That has been a big piece for a lot of these individuals, because again, not so much in the ag societies. The ag societies are a little bit slow to the catch, but as far as the major municipalities, they're eating up the idea of the change, how they can get their facilities, cleaner for the users. There really isn't much to say. Again, we are being the gas capital of Canada, where we've had an industry that was oil related for so long that technology needs to change and technology needs to advance. What are some of the ways we're doing it? So they're looking at different perspectives here. And, I see it through my travels where I'm seeing the solar panels as you enter communities. So change is happening. And I think we're right on the right time. And the 450 couldn't have come out at a better time.
I concur with that. And it's something that the marketplace was ready. We're seeing it more and more across Canada in areas that maybe weren't as popular with an electric vehicle. And I think, again, has to do with marketplace. In the States down here, Michigan is definitely lagging behind other states in customers going with an electric. And I think that has to do with it being, what I refer to as the car capital of the world, with Detroit and all the automobile manufacturing. So, Justin, where do you envision your fleet being? Is this something that's going to evolve strictly to electric vehicles, or do you think that there's still a chance you guys will consider fossil fuel machines in your fleet?
I never like to say there's an absolute to go one way or the other. The approach that we're really taking is at this point in time, each fuel source has a specific place where it should be used, could be used, and maybe ought to be used. I think as a whole, not only for our ice resurfacers, but our entire fleet, we're looking at opportunities where electric is going to make sense. We do have another Zamboni, or another ice resurfacer, I guess, on the books for 2022 that we've decided that we are going to take a hard look and see, does electric make sense there. We'll have a year better experience with the 450s, which will certainly shine some light if it's the right decision. But we are also in the CNG business. We own and operate our own CNG facility. We still own and operate gas wells and our own gas department. So our perspective is really not necessarily taking an idealistic approach to where we're going to go, but taking a very practical and pragmatic approach to make sure we're getting the right fuels into the right machines for the right reasons, and taking a holistic approach to how we manage our environmental footprint.
That's great. That's great. And that's, Chris, I don't know if you're seeing that as well with your other customers in municipalities. I'm going to assume that they're, again, being the marketplace that you are, it's slightly different than the Quebec marketplace or BC, where they're trending more and more towards electric with the choices. But again, I think that it's going to have to be going that way in Alberta, just because I think the younger crowd that's coming into this business is more used to electric vehicles, and they're not going to have the reservations. And I think the technology has changed immensely. I'm excited as all get out about lithium ion in the electric machine that we produce down here in the States, because we're seeing I was guessing that we would see a 60 to 70% take rate, and we're seeing 90+% take rate of lithium ion over lead acid. And the number one factor that's been talked about is eliminating the maintenance side of things. And I think, Justin, you're going to see that as being a huge play for your people, and that they're going to have less to do. They'll be able to focus on other vehicles as part of your fleet. They're not going to have to spend as much time taking care of things on the resurfacer side at the rinks.
I completely agree. I think it's a lot of those, we'll call it added values that will come out of moving to this technology. And really all of it really amounts to improved efficiencies and financial wins right across the board. And of course, doing that in an environmentally friendly and sustainable way really checks all the boxes.
Yeah, in this day and age, anything that is green, or it's the net zero, that's a buzz phrase that we've jumped onto, and it seems to play very well. One of the things we've seen down here with facilities, I don't know how it is in smaller municipalities in Canada, because you guys, I think, have a few less lawyers than we have down here. But by eliminating fuel from the building, they're able to see reduced rates from their insurance companies, because they're taking emissions out of the building. They are taking the fuel out of the building. And they are also reducing costs by not having to ventilate the facility as often. And you get that down south of the Mason-Dixon line, where the two powerhouse hockey communities that everybody would think would be playing the Stanley Cup Finals up in Edmonton, being Tampa and Dallas, those places don't generally cool down very often. So electric vehicles down there, especially in the ice resurfacer world, where you're not having to introduce hot, humid air into the ice rink, make a lot of sense.
Going back to the earlier statement, somebody who was in recreation like myself for a long time, the biggest thing was making it safe for the kids at play. And having this technology, again, when I come from the old tractor mount years of driving, the amount of CO2s going into the air, and you go home at night and you're smelling, to the point now where if you're driving an electric, especially the lithium, you're not having those issues anymore, and kids are able to use the facility, operators, everybody themselves, like, they're just safe around it. And as far as the lithium has been progressing, right now the smaller communities here in Alberta are adopting it a lot quicker than, say, the major municipalities. The fact that Medicine Hat moved forward was, it was a huge success, just in the fact that it's a major municipality in Alberta. And when we have five major municipalities in Alberta that are yet to adopt, aside from Medicine Hat, this has actually been a pretty good progression here in Alberta. But like I say, the smaller municipalities are actually quite jump on board, just for the fact of those reasons. Is it's more economical for their community.
Yeah, and I keep going back to it, guys. I think when you look at kind of the trifecta of financial responsibility and environmental stewardship and health and safety for both workers and the community, it really seems like an opportunity where you can't go wrong, and it seems like the technology has finally caught up where we can have all three.
The maintenance itself is going to be one that's going to really help you guys in the future, because the amount, when you looked at your old units compared to where you're going to be moving forward on this one, mine and your visits are just going to be, hey, how's it going, instead of the visits of what maintenance can we do for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think it's really changing the way our technicians internally are thinking as well. And of course, there's going to be work for them for a long, long time, but it's really getting them excited that they're going to get the opportunity to learn a new part of their trade. And so being able to engage those our technical staff to really get excited about learning and doing something different again.
Chris, I think that as long as there's drivers that are out there driving our equipment, there's always going to be a need for service, because you're not going to eliminate the guy forgetting to lift the conditioner as they come off the ice. You're not going to eliminate the fact that they drive it into the boards or drive it into a pit. So this might reduce some of the sales of parts, but I really don't think it's going to eliminate them.
Oh, you're right. It's just a little fun I like to have with Jason, just based on the fact that, yeah, this is definitely going to be a win-win for everybody. But no, the conditioner itself, you're right. But when I look at just the overall, just this 450, it's one that I wish I would have had when I was an operator, because you can just get excited behind it. We talk about the technology. I was just talking to an operator yesterday, or a manager yesterday, and it's not like people are jumping at the gun to get into recreation. Everybody wants on their bucket list an opportunity to drive a Zamboni, but to become an operator is one that has always been a challenge. But now with the technology of the Connect and the technology of the lithium ion, it's actually creating a whole new zest for what it's going to mean for these individuals starting in the career of recreation, whether it is just the guy retiring or just the guy starting up their career. Like that Connect alone is just a huge piece to talk about when we're talking to everybody in facilities on the training, on the data collection, and the data collection for fleet, being that they're able to see what's going on with that piece of equipment, and then it's going to be looking at what's going on and potentially in the future maybe predicting the lifespan of that piece of equipment. So, and we can let Justin speak towards what that might mean for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the maybe big question marks we have beside this, and is traditionally we would put a life cycle on our units of about 7 to 10 years before we either have to make a major investment in rebuilding them, or that we start to look to divest them and get something new. With electric technology being what it is, and the projected price of battery technology coming down, we're starting to put some question marks beside, can we extend that life cycle out, which then again adds to the value added to this piece of equipment. I think the Connect system is going to be game changing as that continues to evolve. The more we can have real-time feedback on what's going on with the unit, the better diagnostics, the understanding of who's doing what, how they're being operated. It's going to give us the ability to manage the risks that inherently come with the operation of a piece of equipment, and have those early interventions that can prevent extended downtimes or unnecessary wear and tear on components.
Well, one of the things I want to touch on that you commented about with Zamboni Connect, and I've used this a few other discussions that we've had, Justin. I grew up in Minnesota. My dad worked for the North Stars for the first 8 years of their existence, and I refer to it as, if that technology was available back when I was young and my dad was working there, probably would have seen a little bit more of them during the winter months. The Zamboni Connect is something that enables you or whoever you deem that you want to be monitoring that, to not have to be tied to the facility to see what's going on looking into the machine. And that's one of the things I'm excited about with this product, and what's made it easy for me to sell to our customers down here in the States is the ability to just know what's going on, and then to, again, use it to train. Marty Elliott, who's my counterpart up at our Canadian plant, tipped me to that, and that was something I hadn't thought about until he mentioned it. But when you can look at your operators, and maybe your facility might not have, or your facilities might not have 20 different operators. There's a bunch of facilities down here in the States where they've got multiple operators, and more operators than I think they'd like to have. And they're drivers. They're not ice makers. I refer to people as either a driver or an ice maker. And it's something that I think that you're gonna really enjoy that feature on the machine, to get a look into it. And you can set it up to give you alerts to, hey, it's time to either send our guy out or have IMI go out and change out the oil filter. It's time to have them come out and do this based on how many hours are on the machine. And that plays well, I think, into giving you the ability to focus on other equipment that you might not have these options available to you on.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the key things we're really excited about is the, we'll call it the visibility over what's going on with the machine, and then our ability to translate that into effective and timely either preventative maintenance, predictive maintenance, or non-maintenance in some cases. I know one of the traps that often fleets get roped into is, in an attempt to be proactive, end up over-servicing, which has its own inefficiencies that come with it, and its own environmental impact and its own cost impact. So if we can get to the point where we're doing the right service at the right time with the right information, have that information at our fingertips, it's going to help us to plan our resources better, and make sure our technical staff and our operational staff have the information they need in a timely manner to make the best decisions they can.
Yeah, and going in towards that, sorry, Doug, going in towards the just the training aspect of it, and that's one of the things that we had talked about here as well, was, using that data, the data that you're seeing from day to day is one where an operator gets to look at that. So from that perspective is when that operator is on that piece of equipment and they can see that last flood took them 7 minutes, and they're like, whoa, I went too fast, how can I change that? And they see now the value of slowing the machine down, or they see that, whoa, I used too much water. And they see it on the ice, but they also see it in the volume. So they get to see live the things that they're doing. So it's now recreating at a different level, that operator again. And, having the ability, and that's one thing that I had talked to Justin about, and it's what we're doing here for IMI, is that we're monitoring that connect with all of our customers. And that way, when we see issues arise, we know when it's time or not time to contact the customer. If it's something that deems a phone call, we can just right away phone the customer and say, hey, this popped up. Do you need us, or do you guys have it covered? And so far, we've had to rely on that twice. And the customer actually was able to, thank us for that information and push the feedback of, no, we don't need you, or yeah, we need you.
And also in regards, maybe building on the training component, I think there's also an opportunity that operators can use the data to have a little bit of healthy competition, and really compare. Okay, here's the ice I was able to make in this amount of time, and here's what we think our spec time should be. How close can we get this? How consistent can we be? And really create some camaraderie and some consistency in the operational staff.
Yeah, we did a podcast with the Arizona Coyotes, one of their practice buildings, and it really was something that they believed in, and they're like the 1%ers. I'm going to refer to them as to where they've taken this. They've been able to utilize it to go back if they had complaints from user groups and say, hey, this is what we did. This is where we're at. These are our numbers. They compare comparably to what another resurface was that we didn't get a complaint from. So it's data, and I think that as an old dinosaur that I refer to myself as, the younger crowds are into this analytics. They're into information. Anything that you can do to provide them additional information, they just eat it up. And I think that your staff at the facilities are going to find it very beneficial. You're going to find it very beneficial because it's going to help you keep the equipment running, and you're going to be able to see things that you wouldn't be able to see without that product.
So Justin, we're coming up to close here. Was there anything else you wanted to speak towards with regards to maybe the MCCAC or towards the technology?
I think number one, the MCCAC has been absolutely fantastic to work with. Because of the funding they are able to provide, it really did make this project financially feasible and allowed us to step into this world. And I can't say enough positive things about my dealings with them. They've been great to deal with. They've helped us through this every step of the way, flexed with us when we needed some flexibility due to things out of all of our control. In terms of the technology, I'm definitely a big supporter of this technology. I know it's still early days in us getting going on this, but everything we were, I guess I'll call it, sold by IMI and Zamboni so far seems to be playing out to be accurate and true, and those are the results we're seeing. So I think we're excited to see that continue, and no reason we wouldn't expect it to be. And then on just a final note, we're just about to do some, I'll call them media releases around the Zambonis themselves, and also roll out some new graphics that we're using to brand our EV products. So this has really been I think a pivotal point in our fleet's history, where we're really starting to make a serious change towards the EV world in a financially responsible way.
That's awesome, Justin. Look forward to seeing that. We always love to see the different wraps that are on our machines, and anything that can be done to promote the direction of going electric.
I'm very pleased that Justin was able to join us and speak highly of the technology and the changes that they're making within their municipality. And that's everything I need to speak towards. And again, thank you, Justin, for being a part of this.
You bet. And thank you, Chris and IMI, for putting up with all my phone calls and emails and inquiries, and really being a huge supporter and partner in guiding us through this journey to get us to where we are.
Well, I want to also jump on that, Justin. We're very lucky to have IMI as one of our dealers. They've been with us for many, many years. I've been blessed in the 33 years I've been with Zamboni to work with Jason and his mother. And it's now nice to see new people like Chris coming on board. And Chris is going to be there to take that company to new and better places, and expand on what they've done for us. So thank you, Chris. Thank you, Justin, for being one of our customers. It's awesome. I want to thank both Chris Fish from IMI and Justin Brunelle from the City of Medicine Hat for spending time with us today. We want to thank all of you for listening to another episode of Ask the Zamboni Experts podcast. Have a question for one of our experts or an idea for a future episode? Please email your questions or requests to info@zamboni.com. For more info and additional podcast episodes, please visit zamboni.com/podcast or search Ask the Zamboni Experts on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. This is Doug Peters wishing you a nice day.